This is the Tom Digby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. This episode is titled Tom Sharp and Tom Lide, who lived in Artesia and died there on January 4th, 1886. Artesia is a small town in Lowndes County, the same county that Columbus is in. By 1884, Artesia was a boomtown. It sat on the M&O Railroad and was a busy center for business. Mississippi was a bit of a wild frontier in many ways, and Artesia embraced that image fully. It was known for its saloons, and the blind-eyed the town fathers appeared to turn to the rules related to Prohibition. The Prohibition Presidential Platform was ignored, and clearly the Anti-Saloon League and the Women's Christian Temperance Union were not active or remotely influential in the town of Artesia. The town was riding high on the coattails of the world's industrial and cotton Centennial Exposition in New Orleans and the prosperity of the price of cotton. Cash was beginning to flow again after a post-Reconstruction depression, and the businesses in Artesia were benefiting. Beyond the gin and the cotton warehouses, the town had saloons, restaurants, and businesses on a busy main street. While the town had grown affluent, whites were worried as they were outnumbered by their black neighbors whom they distrusted. In 1873, Bob Thompson, a black state legislator and political activist from the region, was falsely accused of killing a white supremacist named Hugh Lee in local news articles of the time. Lee belonged to the White Liners, a group of men who perpetuated the myth of innate racial disparity between whites and blacks. Lee and his fellow White Liners had allegedly locked the local Republican candidates and supporters out of a black school building. This school was where Republican clubs met in nearby Crawford to organize and support local black voters and candidates. The White Liners threatened the lives of candidates and the coordinators of the Republican Party, as well as the lives of their families. In 1875, in Columbus, Robert Gleed, the former Mississippi black senator for Lowndes County, was running for sheriff. The local Democratic Party and their attendant White Liner members obstructed the vote with violence against the Republican club parades and destruction of their drums. The White Liners then marched on Gleed's home, where they destroyed its contents, slashing the breast of every item of his wife's clothing. Lide was forced to hide in a well at the white attorney Cicero Lincoln's home, and then Lide escaped to Texas to start a new life with his family. In the fall of 1876, multiple incidents of red shirts, a white supremacist paramilitary terrorist group, and White Liners disrupted Republican parades, speeches, and meetings all around Lowndes County. On September 23, 1876, reminiscent of the September 4, 1875 Clinton massacre, a group of African American families gathered in Chapel Hill near Starkville, Mississippi, to hear white and black candidates speak. A group of white young men from West Point came to join young men from Starkville and took a position on a nearby hill with a piece of artillery left over from the Civil War. Some of the young men were sent to, quote, attend the meeting below and were challenged by a sentry set up to prevent outside agitators from instigating trouble. A barrage of shots rang out as the men retreated up the hill. At the end of the night, 8 African Americans were injured. It is unknown if any of the white men on the hill were injured. The Artesia affair occurred soon after, in November of 1876, creating an atmosphere of intimidation to suppress black votes in the community. White and black candidates had arrived in Artesia to have a set of speeches and informal debates ahead of the looming election. The white candidates, Lee, Humphreys, and General Sharp, were in the Artesia Hotel having breakfast in preparation for their event. As they were dining, 40 to 50 armed black men marched in formation into town, followed by a wagon with a straw-covered bed. The candidates watched as 2 white men went to intercept the wagon. A guard on the wagon warned the men not to approach the wagon. He raised his gun to emphasize his position. A fight ensued and shots were fired. The black men and their wagon fled to the edge of town to regroup. Humphreys immediately telegrammed for help, fearing a repeat of troubles in Chapel Hill and the armed mob of black men. The Columbus Riflemen and a group of volunteers under the command of Federal Commandant W.E. Gibbs arrived on the noon train. The men disbanded and returned to their homes, and peace was restored temporarily. The white community remained wary and on alert, worried to being outnumbered and now potentially outarmed by their former enslaved population. A large fire swept through the business district of Artesia on December 27th of 1885. A fire this morning destroyed every store in this place, per the Artesia Destroyed by Fire article, Pickens County Herald and the West Alabamian on 30 December 1885 edition. 8 businesses were destroyed and most of the downtown businesses were damaged. The larger merchants were insured. The entire community turned out to help with the fire. When all was said and done, it was found that the fire was intentional and had spread rapidly across the wood structures in the brisk fall breeze. Loss was valued at over $30,000. The station for the M&O Railroad was destroyed at a value of $20,000. Fire this morning destroyed every store in this place. The insurance is only nominal and is all in New Orleans companies except $2,250 in the Phoenix of Hartford. The losses as follows. William Crump, loss $5,000. Insurance $1,500. John Roberts, loss $5,000. Insurance $2,000. H. Loke, loss $4,500. Insurance $2,000. George DeWitt, loss $5,200. Insurance $2,000. W.H. Thompson, loss $1,000. Insurance none. B. Godney, loss $500. No insurance. Fire at Artesia, Mississippi, the Tennessean, 28 December 1885 edition. These events helped set the stage for the visceral response to 2 African American men, Thomas Sharp and Tom Lide, who would stand accused of being firebugs in the Artesia community. Tom Lide and Thomas Sharp lived and worked on the Tom P. Edwards place between Artesia and Crawford. On January 4th, 1886, Sharp had been arguing with his fellow workers all day. Multiple times that day, Mr. Edwards had stopped his bickering and had chastised him for his contrary behavior. Sharp, per his peers, was the instigator of each disagreement. His fellow farm workers had had enough of his behavior and had banded together to give Sharp an old-fashioned blanket party. Mr. Edwards turned a blind eye to the event. Sharp, angry with Edwards for not stopping the beating, plotted to get even. Sharp decided that Edwards' cotton house filled with cottonseed would be the target of his plan. He bribed another worker from Edwards' place with $23 to set fire to the cotton house. The building was set on fire, but luckily other workers were in the area shucking corn in a nearby corn crib. They rushed over and put out the fire, and only 2 or 3 bales of cotton were damaged or destroyed. They also saw Lide running from the building. While some remained behind to put out the fire, others gave pursuit and captured him. Lide confessed to his part and stated that Sharp had paid him to light the fire. They gave pursuit and captured him, and then it was that he confessed the whole plot. Sharp was also captured, with both criminals taken to Artesia Monday evening. Lynched by his own, the Aberdeen Examiner, Aberdeen, Mississippi, 14 January 1886 edition. The first reports from the Mobile papers on December 30th of 1885 indicated the 2 men were found lynched from the M&O Railroad Bridge 1 mile above Artesia. The Vicksburg Evening Post, January 4th, 1886 edition, reported that the townspeople, still furious over that fire, grabbed the men from their detention and marched them to the railroad bridge and their death. There is no record of Sharp or Lide's lives in local census records, the 1880 census specifically, and absolutely no record of their burials exist. The inquest held over their death is recorded in the Lowndes County Board of Supervisors Minute Book number 9 on page 431. I want to thank you for coming on this episode of the Tom Digby Tales. Until next time.